Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played's Table Talkback. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to take a look at your responses to the previous Table Talk video, where we discussed how board games can potentially benefit or detract from your mental health. If you didn't catch the initial video, please check the description below to find the link. For the rest of you, first off, thanks for sharing thoughtful and often very personal responses on this topic. I read all of them, and while I can't possibly feature all of them here, I've picked a selection which hopefully hits on some of the shared perspectives several of you were feeling. First up, we have Marie S., who said, "I don't know many people who enjoy games, so it's forced me to go to gaming group events. It's also given me the opportunity to host game nights. As someone who's not naturally social and who has anxiety and self-doubt, being able to host game nights boosts my mood because I feel successful socially. I've spent most of my life feeling disconnected, but when I play games, even with strangers, I feel connected. I feel part of, and that is great for my mental health." I think of myself as having extroverted tendencies, so I might face different challenges than folks like Marie, but like her, I've been thankful to have gaming as a reason to create social situations in my life, because life can certainly get busy. And the last few months in particular have been kind of isolating for me because I've been trying to catch up on several mounting demands. And gaming gives me a simple, approachable way to invite friends over, set a very easy agenda, let's play a game, and then it gives us all a way to reconnect socially because we have an activity we're all looking forward to doing together. And to all of you who may not always feel comfortable in social situations but strive to make them happen out of a love for board games, keep up the good work. And speaking of work, Jen Cam Plays Board Games said, "I've always been an anxious person. I got into the board gaming hobby during the pandemic, and when my family weren't as interested, I began to play solo, which can also be isolating. Last year, I decided to face my fears and start a Twitch channel so I wouldn't always be playing alone." So shout out to Jen Cam, who is on Twitch. I wanted to share this though because I found it relatable. I might not wrestle with all the same challenges, but when we first moved to the place that we live now, I didn't know anyone, and we had young kids, and life was busy, as you can imagine, and I was craving connections, and specifically connections to other board gamers, because I had returned to the hobby recently, and I was on the Board Game Geek forums, I was watching videos, listening to podcasts, and I sensed there was a community of gamers out there, but they all felt very far away. And that was one of the main motivating factors for creating Watch It Played. I hoped in some way that I might be able to connect with that larger gaming community. And through this, I certainly feel like I have. And I'm sure Jen would probably say the same thing, but you don't need to start a YouTube or Twitch channel to do that. You can make connections within shared social media circles, Discord groups, local game groups, and anywhere that you risk putting yourself out there. It may not always yield immediate results, but having a shared passion for board games gives you a potential starting point to find other like-minded gamers, so don't give up. Next, I wanted to share a comment from Jonathan V., which started with some of the ways that board gaming had really helped him in difficult times, but also included these concerns. "Last winter, I agreed to play Magic Maze, which allows no communication except signaling for players to do something. I got so frustrated with it, I literally broke a game piece in anger. I've played this game. I have a guess at what piece it might be. If you've played the game, maybe you do too." Jonathan continued, "Despite the fact that no one was hurt, I was shocked at my lack of control, and my evening was ruined. I don't like that ugly side of myself. I'd never seen gaming turn into an expression of violence before, least of all with me, who usually plays to have a good experience rather than needing to win. That led to some self-awareness for me, not to walk into games that use frustration or adrenaline as a key motivator, because I might not like the person I become when playing." Jonathan, I just wanted to start by saying I really appreciate your openness and vulnerability in sharing that story. And there are a couple of things I just want to acknowledge here. Games, even cooperative ones, have a level of competitiveness, right? And they can bring with them expectations. You know, like we have expectations on how we're going to perform, and we can perceive others having expectations on us, right? So even something meant to be light and fun can include layers of pressure we might not be aware of. And if that pressure builds, it's likely going to come out somewhere. For Jonathan, it came out in a way he wasn't proud of. But I think he should be proud of recognizing the issue and knowing to adjust in the future. That's the key. I aspire to have a joyful temperament when I play games, but sometimes I don't. And it's tempting to look externally and blame others at the table. And sometimes, look, others could be to blame, but it can also be that we're putting ourselves in situations that we aren't yet suited for. You know, games that have timed pressure, extra complexity, maybe heightened competitiveness, those can be fun, but they can also bring with them stressors. And it's important to know how those factors are not only affecting us, but also those around us. So with that in mind, here's Angela Albert sharing some of the positive effects that she's found through gaming. My family had relocated to another state, and I had recently started homeschooling my kids, which were both isolating and stressful events. In the beginning, I was using games as a way to reinforce math and reading. It worked educationally, but more importantly, it became something we all looked forward to. Games helped my kids learn to deal with big emotions, and also gave my husband and I a mutual hobby, which also bettered our communication. As someone who didn't grow up in a safe family environment, gathering around the table with my kids and spouse for our nightly family game was very cathartic. I'm glad that this is a topic of discussion because it's clear I'm not alone in my gratitude. You're absolutely not, Angela. I think your experience is thankfully shared by many others who have also found gaming to be not just a source of entertainment, but also a tool for dealing with challenges and creating positive bonding experiences. Jeremiah Howard certainly agreed. He said, I'm in IT, and I've noticed I don't enjoy getting on my computer to play games. Instead, I've jumped headfirst into board games. I think I realized my need for in-person social interaction, which is something I didn't notice until it was pointed out. Reading through the comments brought me to tears. Thank you, and to all who have commented. This is one of the reasons I was really grateful that people were willing to share their stories, because I know I can find myself sometimes feeling a certain kind of way or knowing I need something, but I don't know what or how to put it into words. And sometimes it's hearing someone else express their experience that suddenly I realize, oh, that's what I'm going through. I just didn't have the words to define it until I heard somebody else express it. And I felt like that was something I was seeing other people experiencing in the comments as well as they were reading. Next up, Chris Stafford offered, I have diagnosed OCD, and my brain is hardwired for right and wrong for every single interaction I have with people and objects. Rodney, I share your relief in clearly defined rules. It's a vacation for my brain where I don't have to be constantly worried about the morality or correctness in how I perform, and instead, I have a small time to know, without a doubt, if the things I'm doing are correct or incorrect. It really re-energizes me for going back out into a shades of gray world. Well, Chris, I'm sure you'd agree, some rule books, when they aren't well written, still leave us with a few shades of gray that we have to navigate in our gaming too. But yes, this is something I've appreciated in general about games. I like the structure provided by that part of the activity. And it's really a requirement for gaming to work. We all have to get on the same page. You know, we might approach our strategies differently, which allows for creative and surprising moments, but in terms of the rules, that's a constant we're all in agreement about. In theory, when players reach a disagreement over a rule, suddenly realizing that they're operating under different assumptions. Hold on, this rule doesn't work this way. Yes, it does. Well, you never taught that rule. Well, yes, I did. Well, if I'd known about that rule, I would have played completely differently. We've had those moments, right? And they're not great. And it kind of exposes why life away from the game table can also be stressful, at least part of it, because the rules to life aren't always clear. And they certainly aren't always fair or applied equally to all players. Perhaps in sensing the problems that can create in playing a board game, it can also give us empathy for people who experience those challenges in the game of life away from the table too. Next up, Mark Wilson has some thoughts I'm sure a few of us will relate to. For me, board gaming is good for mental health as a wonderful social outlet. That said, the board game industry and its ubiquitous consumerist forces are far less so. Nuance and exceptions exist for both, including board gaming media like you all share. That's easily a net positive. But these distinctions are important for my understanding of how and why I want to interact with different subsets of hobby gaming. Mark kindly, maybe too kindly, gave us a pass as a channel that perhaps offers a net positive. We do try to be conscious about how we present games. I never want to use language like, you must buy this game, or you have to try this one. Not because I think there's something morally wrong with those phrases. I can appreciate when someone's enthusiastic about something and wants others to share in their enthusiasm. I just worry on a subconscious level that language like that lends itself to that consumerist way of thinking that's related more to the buying and acquiring of games rather than the enjoyment of playing them. And look, there's no doubt, even though we make videos where we try to help people discover, learn, and play games, we're inherently going to be feeding into that messaging of, look at all the games. And I do hope people discover games here that will be a good fit for them. But I think it's also important, as Mark is doing, that we challenge ourselves to look at our relationship with our board games. Are we getting enjoyment from them? We need to be mindful of the factors that will rob our joy or feed our fear of missing out. And then adjust our engagement with the hobby accordingly so that it can continue to be a positive force on our mental health. Next up, Kevin77 shares this experience. 2 years ago, I was forced to move in with my mom, who had dementia. I had to give up my apartment and basically left my entire life behind. My mental health was slowly getting worse due to the stress of the situation. I was lower than low. During this time, my brother would talk to me about board games, and he and I started to get back into the hobby. Then one day, in April, a package arrived. It was a board game. It wasn't my birthday, and I didn't order anything. I asked my brother if he knew anything about it. He said he didn't. The next day, 2 packages arrived. The next day, 3, and so on until I had over 20 brand new board games. It was at this time my brother couldn't hide it any longer. He told me he posted on his Facebook page that I wasn't doing so well and was having a hard time. He'd put together an Amazon wish list and suggested that his friends donate to this cause. It was the most touching thing anyone has ever done for me. And these games and the hours of playing with my brother and friends have been a saving grace for my mental health. I will never forget the impact of this and of board games. I really felt I had to read this comment because in a discussion about mental health and gaming, I thought, what better story to include than one that might actually improve our mental health just by listening to it. Kevin, I'm sorry, of course, for the challenges you had to face with your mother, and maybe are facing now. I had a grandmother with dementia, and it's horrible, but I'm also thankful for your brother and the community and you for sharing this story, because when I read this, it lifted my spirits, and I'm confident it did for many people who are listening to it now. And with that, I think I'll wrap up with just a big thank you to everyone who left comments on the original video. I look forward to reading any further comments you wish to share below of your own experiences with how board games have affected your mental health, positively or negatively. If you enjoyed, do consider leaving a like, subscribing, clicking that little bell icon, and if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team and get access to our Discord for even more conversation. But until next time, thanks for watching.